so many people in this room know you, Alex, but I'm very excited to have you and your husband both here today. Alex and I met a couple years ago, and she was a real estate investor first, then got into real estate as a realtor. And so I'm really excited to have her today. Investor hat on first today instead of realtor hat on today. And also her husband, Paul, is so talented and has a lot of value to offer here in terms of renovations, and they self-manage, they do tons of projects. So I'm excited to dive into that today. So thank you guys for being here with us.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so first off, I just kind of want to like to start at the beginning. We have a lot of people in our community who are just getting going. They maybe haven't even bought their first property yet. They're trying to figure out kind of where to start and how to get into things. So I always like to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit and tell us about how you got into the investment space and kind of where you started and why, I guess.
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for a long time. My family has owned real estate in Europe. And when I grew up in West Coast, I'm originally from Victoria. I had some family friends who had real estate in Victoria. And when I came into Calgary about 20 years ago, my dad forced me essentially to buy my first house in my early 20s. And I was lucky to get hired on by a major company, and they paid a lot of my legal fees and CMHC and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I was in my early 20s, and I bought a house by the University of Calgary, and I had roommates. I got roommates to move in with me in my single days in my 20s, and they helped me pay off the mortgage.
Yes.
For numerous years. And that's when after a while I met Alex, and obviously she couldn't, come into the house and be a roommate. So we decided, I took equity out of that house, flipped it to myself, and then we bought our first house after we got married.
Amazing. And we're going to talk about more of this later, but I love how your family kind of introduced this to you, right? And really made a push to push you in that direction. My mom was the same way. She worked in the bank, and the first time I moved out, it was like, this is what you're doing when you're paying someone else's rent. And she outlined, how you're paying someone else's mortgage down. So that's awesome. And then, when you're young, have these roommates pay that off for you. So that's incredible. Do you still have that property?
I do, yeah. So it's in Varsity. It's by the University of Calgary, yeah. And I've had it for 20 years, and yeah, it's a great property.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Alex, when you guys met, was this something you had wanted to get into, or was this new for you, or had you guys kind of created this path together once you guys met?
I was new to real estate investing. I was new to construction and renovation, but I wasn't new to design. And at the time when we met, Paul was managing all the tenants, but we're a really good team. So we have the whole yin yang going. So as I watched him do all kinds of renovation, he taught me a lot and opened up my eyes to this. And I saw a business opportunity, and I actually approached Paul once we had our first child, and I was a sit-at-home mom, and I was a little bit bored, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. So I said, we should make this a business. And here's the thing, I'm the idea man, and then Paul just kind of comes in and makes it happen. So he said, what do you mean? Like, I said, well, let's buy more houses and I'll manage them. And turns out I'm really good at it. And Paul comes in and kind of
I like dealing with the trades. I like the construction aspect, the remodeling. So we like to focus on kind of suburbia and the ugly ducks, I guess, in neighborhoods, and put some sweat equity into it and kind of make it ours. And we're definitely buy and hold, right? We're not into flipping, buy something and keep it for 20 years and just kind of keep chipping away at it. That's kind of our model, and it works for us. It might not work for everybody. You definitely have to, be a handy type of person and have the patience to work with the trades and see it, for the long run.
For sure. I think a lot of people that is something that they're scared of when it comes to something that needs a renovation. If you haven't, grown up around that or been exposed to it, it is kind of a big hurdle to get over. Going back a bit to the strategy. So long-term buy and hold, a lot of people obviously are either hoping to get to that point. They're using short-term in strategies maybe so that they can buy their long-term buy and holds. But are these single-family houses? Are we talking about secondary suites? I know you guys have kind of gone down that path. Is that the majority of what what the units you have are?
Yeah, so we prefer single detached homes. And when we bought the properties, I ran illegal suites for many, many years because the city of Calgary didn't have a process to legalize them.
That's
and
right.
over the last few years, they have come up with a process and they've made them legal. And so that's actually some of the projects that we've done during COVID life is actually legalize some of these illegal basement suites and make them legal.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's such a good opportunity right now. I'm still finding people who are not aware of this opportunity, but for years, I mean, that was how it was done. We all just had illegal suites, and the city would turn a blind eye unless, you know, there was a fire or something happened, and that was just how we did it. And that's how it's done in a lot of other major centers. So the ability that we have right now to legalize some of these existing suites is a really, really great opportunity. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's big benefits in doing that because also the banks, when you refinance after a 5-year term, the banks look at that rental income out of the basement suite as 100% instead of 50%.
Exactly.
And so that allows you to take more equity out, and the numbers work better when you do a refi on it.
And from a realtor's perspective also, the city is shutting down, as you know, Natasha, this amnesty period in December 2021. And I fully suspect that those who have taken the time to legalize the basement suite in the long term will benefit because those properties will probably appraise better. Yeah.
Exactly. Right now, we don't even have 5,000 legal ones in our city. And who knows how many illegal ones, tens and tens of thousands, I think we can imagine. While we're on that topic, I mean, this is something we haven't even addressed in these kind of interviews that I've been doing, but if I'm a homeowner, I have an illegal suite, can you kind of just give us what do I do and where should I start if I want to go and legalize these things? Because it can feel a bit daunting, but I think the city has laid it out. So maybe we could give a bit of advice to those people who do have these types of properties. What to expect?
You want to take this question?
Yeah, so we've done, I think, 3 legalizations, and it's actually a fairly decent process. You know, we were a little bit hesitant, you know, when you're dealing with the city and you're dealing with inspectors, right? You know, coming in, you know, we thought it would be a bit of a nightmare kind of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the inspector, you kind of have to submit an application with the city of Calgary. It's all done through the web, etc. Right? And then a city inspector will come and who will actually walk through the property and tell you the deficiencies of what you need to do to make it a legal suite. Right, and he will generate a report for you. You can talk with him. You know, it usually probably takes an hour, hour and a half for him to identify where the smoke detectors need to be. Right, it's a good conversation. It's almost like a consultation. And then you have to, you know, do I think a construction permit or a building permit, right? You know, with the city of Calgary, which they waive that fee. And then you do it yourself, or you bring in trades, right, to put in smoke detectors, you know, make the windows legal, you know, the list goes on. There's, you know, certain things that have to be done. And then you ask the inspector to come back when it's done, and then he'll inspect it, and then you're a legal basement suite, and you get a sticker, and it's registered with the city of Calgary. So it's not rocket science. You know, it does take some time, especially with COVID, because a lot of these inspections have to be done with, you know, different apps, and they can't physically go into your property. And, you know, there's some things that you have to kind of work around, but it's a decent process.
For sure. It has come a very long way from where it used to be a few years ago. There's still a bit of that. You get different questions when you ask, or you get different answers when you ask the same question to a few people. I have experienced that as well. But from where we used to be with this, it has come a very long way. So that's a huge help. And for people watching, this is to do with existing suites built prior to March of 2018. It can't be, you know, a suite you built last week or last month. It has to be existing prior to March of 2018. And that's why you're seeing these listings like flying off the shelves right now, because after this amnesty period ends, you'll have to meet the full building code to get that legal secondary suite, which is a massive renovation. You have to, you know, separate the suites entirely in terms of HVAC and heating and all of that stuff. So it's a huge opportunity right now. So that was really helpful for those out there who may be feeling a little leery, but I think you kind of have to do it. You got to jump in, you got to get it done. That's my 2 cents anyway. Paul, I kind of wanted to talk to you about managing a job site and trades, and this is something like you go on investment boards, you hear people all the time, they got screwed by a trade, they gave them a deposit, they never finished a job, or, whatever. And I feel like, there is a few things that can help a lot, but I think people underestimate managing even your contractor or your GC or trades or what goes into that. And it is something you need to manage. So could you maybe give us a few lessons in that, or tips and tricks of how, if you had a job site running, what would you absolutely need to do?
Yeah, where to start, Natasha? This is a topic in itself, right? We could have a whole day workshop on this.
Totally.
Some words of wisdom. If you're new to kind of this kind of domain, definitely do not pay trades up front.
Yes.
Get everything in writing, right?
Yes.
Outline the scope of the work. And if there is scope creep, then don't expect a trade to do something for free, right? If you only want one bathroom done and you're asking for, a 2-piece, right? You're going to pay more for it, right? So it's a two-way street. Ideally, it would be nice to have relationships already built with your trades, right?
Yeah.
So we're fortunate that I've been doing this for 20 years. I have 2 or 3 plumbers that are on my cell phone that I can text, that are, acquaintances or friends. And if I need something done tomorrow, he's there for me, right? And so ideally, right, you would want to have, an electrician and a plumber and an HVAC guy on speed dial, right? On your phone.
For sure.
That might not be the case for everybody. So yeah,
but you
can
could ask someone, right? You could ask someone for those.
So somebody that is, ask for referrals and references and things like that. Yeah. So definitely do your due diligence, right? Don't just take the lowest quote, right? If you're looking at some work to be done, usually you get what you pay for, right? So the lowest quote is a guy, right, that is usually not busy. He might not be very well experienced. His previous company might have gone bankrupt and he just, reincorporated. Right? That happens a lot, right? Very easy to set up a new company, right? And go bankrupt, or your previous company. That happens a lot in the trades.
Yes.
So, and don't be surprised if you say, hey, I need a new bathroom, and your plumber says, yeah, I can schedule you in 2 weeks from now. And that's usually a good sign because he's busy. He's good. Right? Yeah. So you need lots of lead time. Don't expect to legalize a basement suite in a month. Depending on the scope of work, you're looking at least 3 months, right? To legalize it, do the inspection, install the smoke detectors. The list goes on. It's a long process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much good advice there. And also, I'd imagine you're checking on your job site. You're going there, making sure what they said was getting done. Like I know Alex all the time is going by your guys' projects as well. And I think people underestimate that. Like you need to be there, and they need to know that you're going to be checking and that you are going to be there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like right now, we're actually doing a bit of a remodel, refresh on one of our units. And so the painters are there this week. So before they showed up, I made sure that the job site was nice and clean for them. That's another pro tip is to, before the different trades come in, you don't want to have 3 or 4 trades working in a particular property. They do not like that. No. So, schedule your electrician to be there on Monday, then your plumber on Wednesday, right? Have that 1 day of lead time. If something goes wrong, then, that work can flow into the next day. And then have your other trade there by himself. And that's especially important during COVID days as well, right? Yeah, exactly. To keep, the disease under control. But what I did previously with the painters, I actually used these industrial extreme sticky notes, Post-it notes. And the painters were there. And I said, I actually put it on the wall, accent wall. And then I actually put the color, right? So they know that this is the wall I want painted as an accent color. There was some mudding and taping that I wasn't able to finish, right? Because it had to dry a little bit longer. So I put a sticky note up there, sand me, right? So the painters know, right, that they need to take, 220 and sand it, right, before they prime. And, because these trades, usually they have a few jobs going on at the same time. Your house, it's usually the first time that they're coming into your property. They don't know the intricacies of each of your properties. So you really have to dumbify it for the trades and set out the expectations of what you want them to do.
100%. Yeah. So much good advice there. Get involved, make it clear, get everything in writing. Do not pay up front. and stay on top of it and plan it out. And you, like you said, you have to plan this out over a period of time. You cannot have everyone showing up at once, and XYZ has to happen first, right? So I think
another pro tip, Natasha, I'll just intervene here, is when you do get that invoice for the final work that is done, pay it quick for the trades. A lot of these trades are not well paid, and a lot of people default on their payments. So building that relationship, you get an invoice on Monday, pay it on Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Don't wait 30 days and then for them to remind you numerous times. Pay them quick, and then when the next job comes up, you're going to be number one in their queue to get the work done.
Absolutely.
And this is all kind of going back to what we said at the beginning of the conversation, that we treat this as a business. Paul is really organized in terms of setting up the whole construction, but he also understands the scope of work, so he's able to do that. And the relationship part is really important with the trades, the tenants, anybody that comes in contact with this. So it's very much like a conscious decision for us.
Absolutely. So much good advice there, guys. I appreciate that. I think I kind of want to do the same thing, but talking about property management, because like from the very beginning, Alex, that was one of the things that you said when you were home with the kids. That was part of what you wanted to take over as part of treating this like a business. And I believe you have kind of carried that through since then. But so you self-manage all of your property, correct?
Sure.
Yeah. And I think even some family members as well.
Family, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously benefits to self-managing is you're not paying a property manager. You're in touch with what's going on in the property. You know day to day what issues lie where, if any, and are in control. So that is a huge benefit. But what does your process look like? Like, do you have people helping you as well, or are you doing everything from start to finish? And if so, what would you recommend to people brand new to this in terms of getting into property management?
So property management is could be a little bit of a beast in itself.
Totally.
And it took some learning for me actually to figure it out. I'm still learning every day, but essentially I've made mistakes in the past. I've learned from them, moved on, try not to repeat it. First things first is your mindset, your approach, and what kind of tenants you're looking for. So we kind of stated that we don't have any properties, let's say inner city. We're mostly in suburbia. So being there, we attract a certain tenant, and this is again a conscious decision that we made. We kind of know what type of people would want to live in our properties, where their kids will go to school, where they're going to be shopping, and I aim to. I do a really thorough screening, first of all, and I don't mind sitting vacant for a month if that means waiting for the right tenant. Yes. I know that people maybe will think or be afraid sometimes of having vacancy, but we've had issues where we had to evict, terminate relationship with our tenants, and it's not fun, and it's not free, because you're still sitting vacant. You have to clean up. Often you have to fix whatever damage they've done, repaint. There's cost associated with that. So I would say the whole screening is very, very important. I do several different strategies. I usually tend to initially, when I first started, I was going a lot through Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace, but I find I have better luck with Rent Faster, even though you have to pay for that service. I also what I do is, and this is what I've learned from Paul actually, oftentimes I would line up showings for prospective tenants, and then I would just be sitting there for hours and nobody shows up. So what I do now is basically book it all for the same day within 10 minutes. And I also text, before I start driving, I text them and say, confirm that you're coming, or they have to text me just to say I'm en route, and only then I leave the house. Just little tricks of a trade. And let's say I will have 10, 15 applications. Some of them, right away that this is not going to be a good fit, but the ones that are in my top 3, that's when I will usually run tenant screening, check their credit, and of course I tell them all about it.
Check the references.
References, absolutely. I can't tell you how many people have not done that part, and obviously it's never a good idea. I also stalk them on social media, but I think it's important, like put in the work, don't be lazy, because, well, the alternative is that you will not have the best tenant. Once we actually select the one, I tell them upfront that I'm looking for a relationship. So, you know, we kind of outline our philosophy. We take care of our tenants really well. If something breaks, I send my GC to fix it right away. And we have a really good communication with them.
Yeah. That's huge.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I think just pro tips, you know, if somebody comes in to view your property and they have cash in hand and they're willing to give you a damage deposit, run away, right?
Yes.
That is not good, right?
No.
So say, you know, here's the application form, fill it out, we'll be in touch.
Yes.
You know, you really have to do your due diligence, and you know that will pay off in return, right? So like Alex was saying, sometimes it's vacant for a month, but I've had tenants living in my properties for 10 years, right? Which is kind of unheard of, you know, because you know, it's a lot of work, right? To kind of prep the property, market it, find another tenant. You do not want to be doing that every year when you're self-managing. You want somebody, you know, to live in your property multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why we tend to invest in suburbia, because that's the kind of tenants that we get. People who intend to stay for many years, and they don't move out very often.
Yeah.
So, yeah. One example here, we have a tenant in living in that Varsity property, my first property that I bought. And so she's been there. She has a young family, one daughter. And so usually in most of my properties, I have electric stoves, right, with the electrical burners.
Yeah.
Because those are usually easier, right, to
sure.
maintain, and they're more, you know, tenant, I guess, friendly, right? But she's a bit of a neat freak, and she had a hard time kind of cleaning that stove. And the stove was in perfect working condition, but she's been there for 4 years, and she contacted us and she said, hey, you know, I'm not a huge fan of this stove because it doesn't cook as well. And, you know, could we upgrade it to a glass cooktop, right? Glass surface,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of hummed and hawed. And then I was like, well, I kind of did my research, and for $600, $700, you can buy a glass, you know, stovetop, brand new. And so I told Alex, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know, let's keep her happy. It's a relationship. For $700, I'm willing to make that $700 investment for her to stay another 4 or 5 years in the property and keep it clean.
Yeah, and like with the going back to the relationship building, I mean, that builds a lot right there. That builds a lot in terms of trust, but also that you care about her happiness and how she's going to use the property. So that's awesome, and I'm sure she was super happy when she got that, right? Alex, do you use these online tools, or Paul, I guess, you know, there's so many of them out there, to do tenant checks and tenant screenings? And if so, do you have a favorite one?
I like TVS,
tenant verification system or something like that. Yeah.
But I don't screen all of them, right? Because you have to pay $25 each time you run their credit. So once I have, you know, 1 or 2 successful candidates, and of course you have to tell them that this is what you intend to do, I kind of leave it until I'm pretty sure, and it's between 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
But there's many others.
There's so many. Yeah, there's so many out there for sure. I know that you guys get your kids involved as well. And that's why I loved at the very beginning how you talked about your parents. And I think that is so awesome. Like, I take my kids to go look at properties and we walk through them, and they've helped on job sites and everything like that. And my dad did that for me as well. So kind of tell me about what you envision, like as a family. I mean, real estate is something that can grow with your whole family, as you know, your kids have kids, or you guys retire, or whatever it is. So is that part of your plan here with this kind of generational benefit for real estate investing?
Yeah, I think there's kind of multiple kind of benefits. So I get my son and daughter involved in some of the renovations, because I think it's a good life skill, right? To have some, you know, skill set in to be able to fix something, right? I find the new generation growing up right now, they're always wired, and they're just texting all the time on their cell phones, and they don't know how to use a hammer or, you know, reciprocating saw or whatever, right? So in one of the suites last year, the kids were out of school, so I got my son involved, and we were doing some framing, using the nailer, all that kind of stuff, and measurements and things like that. So I'm trying to incorporate some life skills so they're not afraid of fixing something and actually looking and building something, right? So in that respect, getting them involved. I find property is an essential part of your overall portfolio. So obviously we have, property, but we also have stock and we have full-time jobs, so it rounds out your portfolio, in my view as well. And so the end goal is, to have my kids, be able to purchase their first homes, in their 20s, live with roommates, build up some equity, those types of things, and, have a successful life. And possibly, help us manage them, to be determined.
Mm-hmm. And are they interested?
Mila is interested only as far as the design, but of course, so we let her come in and we ask, she's very creative, where we don't always do polka dot walls as per her recommendation, but I don't want her to be afraid of it. When I met Paul, I didn't understand Canadian construction coming from Europe. And so for them, like we're always just talking real estate, right? So they hear the conversations, they know all of our tenants, they understand how this whole real estate investing works. I don't know how much they actually understand, but they're asking all the right questions. And I think, they're like sponges. They're sucking all of this out. They're not afraid of construction, especially our son.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And in the end, we're building this legacy for them. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely. My kids are kind of the same. Brinley's like all about the design and things looking a certain way and how that makes her feel. And Aiden's definitely more hands-on and likes numbers and that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. And then, I mean, you guys are doing this as a couple as well. So between the two of you, I mean, I think you have, it's been pretty clear, but you've been able to establish kind of what each of your strengths are and kind of create, roles that complement one another as well. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of intentional?
Yeah, like I don't think you want to deal with tenants.
Yeah, I prefer to kind of do the more remodeling and things like that. I actually did the property management, right? When I was living by myself before I met Alex in my 20s, I was, posting ads on Kijiji, going to the university, and trying to get roommates to move in and, and deal with all that. So I did do that. I deal enough with people in my day-to-day job that I'd like to outsource it to Alex, and she's a little bit more personable than I am. So, that's her core skill set. So I'll let her kind of excel in that.
I really like property management aspect of it.
Yeah, you have all the skills needed for that. Absolutely. Alex, I get the question a lot. If I want to be a real estate investor, should I become a realtor?
Well, I can answer that very easily. I was a real estate investor first, and then I had this notion that I'm gonna benefit our portfolio by becoming a realtor, and now I have zero time to even look at another.
I know, that's the problem.
For us. So
we had initial kind of discussions, that we wanted to scale and have 100, 200 doors and take it to the nth degree. But once Alex, got a real estate license, and we kind of stood back and said, we both have decent jobs, and do we really need that, right? Is that something that we want to go into? And, at this juncture, no, maybe in the future, but we're fine with what we have right now.
Exactly. And I think we talked about this a little bit before we started, but that's what I want to get out there. And that's what I want people to understand is that, it doesn't matter if you want 1, 2, 5, 10, or 100 doors. There is something to be said about real estate investing. And whatever that number is for you is perfectly fine. And I think some of these larger groups and podcasts make it feel like you have to be reaching this kind of insane level that only a very small fraction of people even want. I mean, having that level of doors that's a massive job. Like that's
a full-time job. Yeah. And then you don't want to be a realtor. You probably
no. Yeah. I get asked that question a lot, and I'm like, you know what? Like, the amount of time that it takes, like let the realtor do the realtor's job, pay the realtor to do the realtor's job, pay the plumber to do their job. If you're not a plumber, don't try to be a plumber. Like by the time you figure it all out, you could have paid someone by now and have it done, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I 100% agree with that, but it is a common question that I do get. Is there, I've talked about this in a few of the other episodes, and a lot of people when they're starting to get going do have fear, or they're feeling held back, or they're feeling uncertain. Did you guys ever have that or deal with that? And if so, how did you work through it? Or did you never experience that?
Did you ever have fear?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm a little bit,
You know what? We're both very entrepreneurial, and we make decisions fairly quickly. And I've owned businesses before. So
yes.
I kind of approached this real estate investing right away, as I would set up my other businesses.
Yeah.
And there was never any fear. But I think, like I said, we work really well together. I take the jobs that you don't want to do, and vice versa. Like I know how to fix few things, but I don't want to be out there demolishing walls all the time.
No. Yeah,
So
for sure.
for us, I don't think fear is the right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, fear doesn't kind of resonate with me. And I think after 20 years of doing it, you've seen a lot, and you just kind of, go with the roles, right? And the punches. And, it's just another day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very little phases us at this point. We just deal with it. Everything is fixable to those investors who might have fear. And if you surround yourself with your A team, which we kind of talked about already, you always have someone to call.
That's right.
So you're not in it alone. And I think maybe the fear comes from lack of knowledge, or maybe not knowing what to do. But once you have your systems in place, it's very much like just checking boxes.
Yeah. And that's, what we talk about a lot is the first step is you have to have that team. Without the team, or without the right people in your life, it's going to be extremely scary and extremely difficult to even get kind of where you want to go. So find the right people, let them do their job in your team, and kind of get started there. But
if you don't want to do it, use property management. There's nothing wrong with that. It just becomes part of your business plan, and you budget for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would almost say, do it kind of a scaled kind of approach too. Don't jump into the deep end as well. So, don't buy a 100-year-old house that needs a full remodel because you're going to be, 200 grand in, right? Yeah. So if you're kind of, on the early stages, right, of this journey, then maybe buy an existing house that has a basement suite potential, or has, a really dungy basement suite that needs a whole bunch of windows cut in. And you live upstairs, or you rent upstairs, you rent the unit upstairs, so you have cash flow, and then you kind of chip away at it, and then you get more comfortable as you go along.
Or just consider turnkey properties.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
With legal basement suites that are out there on the market.
Yeah, for sure. There's something for everyone out there to turn, whatever scope of work they're comfortable with. It's nice that we do have all those options now. We used to not have them here in Calgary, but it is kind of good that we do now. I think, is there anything else you guys want to add? Like, I think we've covered so much in this so far, but I think you guys are incredible, obviously, and are a real inspiration. And Alex, I obviously am grateful to have you on my team, but for anyone who, Alex is so helpful. If you call her, she will help you and answer questions with some of this stuff as well. And they're just an awesome couple to follow. But is there anything else you want to add, or anything else you maybe give some advice?
Yeah, if I had, I just think it's a great time to buy, invest any property right now, because interest rates are just crazy right now. Yeah, so usually I do a kind of a 5-year variable, kind of fixed, right, rate. And I was shocked that I was getting a 1.69 for 5 years open VAR, right? And so I was, we used to think that 2.99 was expensive, right? 2 years ago, or that was a steal, right? Sorry. Right?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
9%. And now you're getting sub 2. And so the numbers are really attractive right now. So luckily I've had a lot of my mortgages, reset, and I'm locking in at lower rates. And it's just, the cash flow gets better and better. And so interest rates are not going anywhere soon, right? Low interest rates are here to stay for an extended period of time. So if you're kind of, on the, debating what is it better to get in this month or next month, it's just do it. The money is so cheap right now. And we've actually seen a lot of people, the rental market is actually really strong, at least here in Calgary, because a lot of people can't afford to buy their own homes because, the job certainty is not there with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And also life happens, and there's a lot of stress, in the in society right now. There's lots of divorces, and people are kind of, there's a big need for housing. And so we've actually increased rent on some of our properties, during a pandemic, which is kind of crazy.
It's unreal. Yeah. It's counterintuitive. That's huge. I mean, I was on a call yesterday, but it comes down to what you're looking at. Like you're talking about cash flow and low interest rates. And we are lucky here in Calgary that you absolutely can find good cash flow here. If you're not finding it, you're not looking in the right place, in my opinion, or at the right, asset type or whatever it is. You absolutely can find it here. And there's really no excuse with how low interest rates are to be able to go and find that. So I think that is awesome advice. I thank you guys so much for being here today. And I'm going to tag you guys below, of course, so you can go follow them or send them a friend request on Facebook. But I think that's good for today. And I just appreciate you guys so much. And thank you for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom and being an inspiration for all of us here in the group.
That's awesome.
You're welcome. Hopefully you learned something.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Natasha.
Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.